say this message to him until you're gone.
Okay.
And there's a letter he gets to open up.
Wow.
And you get to,
Deep.
someone hands it to him the day you're gone, and he gets to read a letter that you can never say these exact words, but it's everything you want to tell him.
Wow.
And it'll be the most important message he ever hears. What would be that message? Just, obviously I didn't prep you for this, but what would be that message that you can never tell him, but it's the most important thing that you need to tell him, and he gets to learn it the day you're gone?
Well, you know, I don't want to just give a canned message that comes to my heart, because if I was thinking through the eyes of my son, there's a couple things. Part of that letter would say, don't listen to anyone. I shouldn't say don't listen to anyone. Listen to the right people. You know, we have so many people giving us opinions and advice. I already have 2 children, right? 13 and 11, Brianna and Brody. And I tell both of them, be careful who you listen to, even me. Because, and I tell them, like, if you have something that's passionate and it's driving you, you have to go for it in spite of what anybody thinks, because the world is always telling us what road, what path to walk on, what's right and what's wrong. And this life, we only have one shot at it. And I'm in a space where I get to meet thousands of people on a monthly basis. And I meet so many baby boomers or guys in their 50s or women in their 60s. I'm like, God, I wanted to do this, but my mom thought. I want to do this, but my teacher said. I want to do this, but my employer, like, they have so many of these guidelines or these feedback coming in. So to simplify that, I would tell them to listen to the voices inside and gain capabilities from people who've already done it.
Yeah.
I would tell him, I guess one of the biggest things I would say is watch the stories we end up telling ourselves. I don't know where they come from. I'm sure you have your own.
Yeah.
And when you decided to do this, I'm sure there was a million stories saying you can't read good, or you're a football player, you're not someone who could impact lives. Like we all have this. This is a really tough question, because I don't want to just give some canned answer. I'm thinking if I was going to write to my son, I'd say, okay, let me back up. I would say you're always going to have 2 voices that live inside of you. You're going to have one to say, that's risky, probably won't work, you're not smart enough, you're not big enough, you're not, you don't live in the right area. You're going to have that voice that always lives inside of us, that voice of self-doubt. And you're also going to have this voice that says, we got this, we can do it, we'll gain the capabilities, I don't care what anybody else says, I'm going to make it work, I'll fight through it. And I'll just say it's okay to have those 2 voices. Just this one's got to win by a little bit.
Yeah.
Not a lot. The score could be 21-23, that this voice has got to win.
Right.
So I'd say fuel the voice of, that empowers you.
That's good. That's a good letter.
I don't know. Yeah.
Imagine your son has watched you accomplish so many things over the next 50, 100, 200 plus years.
Yeah.
As old as you want to live, you're going to live forever, I feel like. And he's witnessed everything you've gone through. What do you want him to say he's most proud of about you at the end of the day?
Tough question, bro. This is great. I'm gonna have to write all this down in my journal for my son. I would say one, that I loved his mother, because if I love his mother the right way, he'll find love like that. I didn't have a good example, and I didn't do so great.
Wow.
And I worked really hard to make that right. I would say that my dad knew his values and he stuck to them. And then he never gave up.
Wow.
I think if it's so funny. So many people ask me, they want that definition of success. I don't know if you get that question a lot. Like, okay, yeah, all right, Louis, just tell me the one thing I can do. Like it's like, okay, hold on.
One thing.
Here it is, right? But if I could give 3 things to anybody, nothing ever works without hunger. If you're not hungry to learn, hungry to grow, hungry to make an impact, hungry to support your family, if you don't have real hunger, like I just wrote a book called The Underdog Advantage, if you don't feel like an underdog, even if you're successful, there's a lot of people going to pass you up that are hungrier than you. Yeah. The second thing is focus. You asked me about my relationship. I said, burn the boats, stay in one swimming lane. You got to put focus on it. I know you're putting a lot of focus on this podcast. You're going to blow it through the roof because your focus is there. Your focus is like a shotgun. You're doing everything good. You have a laser, man, it just grows. It's just the way it is. It's why I'm putting so much time into this partnership with Tony, because it's growing like crazy. We're impacting lives. So it's hunger, focus, and measurement. I think those 3 things can allow you to have a foundation for success. Like I would I mean, measure means you wouldn't play a football game if you weren't keeping score.
Yeah, of course.
But you can't run a company without knowing numbers of where you were, where you want to go, and measure against it. If you're losing weight, you weigh yourself, right? So we need to measure those factors that make a relationship amazing. Because if you measure, you go, wow, when I come home and I look at my phone after not seeing my wife all day, it makes her sad. I'm measuring that. No more looking at my phone when I come home. I want to look my wife in the eyes and say, did you have a good day? Like, you measure that and you adjust. You measure again. If you're gaining weight, you measure and you change the way you're eating. You're losing the game. You measure, you change, you start running the ball more.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't measure their life in their marketing, in their business. It's like people will just do ads or do promotion and they're not measuring it methodically, so they don't know if it's winning or losing until they go out of business. Yeah. So hunger, focus, and measurement are the three things I always tell people. You have those three, you got a great foundation.
Those are powerful, yeah. And what do you think would be the thing you'd want Lisa to be most proud of you at the end of the day? To say she's most proud of what specifically? Things that you did, said, became.
I was a man of my word. I did what I said. Because in today's world, that's I don't think that's honored as much as it should.
Yeah.
As it should. I mean, I don't think it's respected as much as it used to be. Honor was such a big thing. Now it's like, my buddy always BS's like that, or like. Yeah. I think it's lost a lot of its value, and I don't think since the day I met her, I don't think there's anything I've ever told her that I didn't do or fought to try to do.
Right.
And I think that's
cool.
And I'd like her to say I was a great role model for our kids.
Yeah.
I think the world needs some more role models.
So true, man. You're a great role model. You had a big year last year. 50 was huge.
It was.
Right? I mean,
probably the biggest year of my life.
On every level.
Yeah.
Personally, emotionally, physically, you're in better shape. You made more money than ever before. Like, everything grew in a powerful way, right?
True.
What's the one thing that you learned that you need to still let go of from last year or years that you're letting go of moving forward this year?
Yeah, another good question. I would say that still inside of me, I'm a broke kid.
Really?
Yeah,
Doesn't that create hunger for you?
It does. It
Is
creates
there a
hunger.
way to be hungry
so that's a great question.
Without having the brokenness inside, or
Yeah.
the Tom Brady chip on your shoulder from 20 years ago, being picked in the 7th round or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it still?
Yeah, and I think there's a really there's a great way to do it. I've worked on myself on so many different levels, but I think deep down, I still hustle like that kid that was told he couldn't, that had dyslexia, was in special reading. And I think I think it's healthy. I think it's healthy to the point of getting momentum, like getting the rocket off the ground takes so much energy. So if running away from an ugly situation gets the rocket off the ground, use it. Yeah. But I think once you're out in orbit, you don't need to hit the gas so hard. You kind of let those things go. So 2020, what's that?
How do we let go of that story for all of us from the past, whether it's the broken kid or the broken parents or was never pretty enough or smart enough or the friend bullied me? How do we let go of that story, or do we hang on to it a little bit?
Well, so I've done a lot of therapy, right? So the best way, and I'm for those of you who are therapists and know this better than me, I'm sorry if I screw it up, but one of the best ways I've done it, and I had to go through this when I was separating from my kids, and I have to say separating from my kids because that was the part that was giving me angst and anxiety, is just going back and seeing where the fear came from. For me, when I went back, let me go back to one of the toughest things, is I was literally having debilitating anxiety. Like I've never had anxiety my whole life. When it was the month before I was going to sit down with my kids and say,
we're separate.
I'm leaving, right? I'd already been living in a separate bedroom for 2 years. They knew that. But now I'm leaving the house. I already got another place and I got to sit and look at them. And I'm having anxiety to where it felt like I was dying. I'd like to say I had this and I was strong and I went through the process. Dude, I was popping Xanax twice a week. I never had taken aspirin.
Yeah.
Like I haven't taken medicine now in 4 years. But I was popping Xanax twice a week and slugging it down with 2 glasses of wine just so I could feel okay for like 2 hours. I didn't know how to, and I was meditating, doing yoga, going to counseling. I was watching Wim Hof. I was doing the breathing. I was doing all of it, and I'd get 20 minutes and boom, I'd be back into this panic stage. For me, one of the things that I realized is all of that was from my 8-year-old self and 6-year-old self when my parents went through a really bad divorce, and we were hiding from it was just weird. Lots of crazy stuff, right? We were literally hiding from my dad because he was going to come. And I realized that I was still feeling like that 6-year-old kid who thought I was going to die, right? And the process I went through is sitting with my 6-year-old self. And I know that's probably therapy 101. It wasn't to me. I never heard this before. But I was with Dr. Amen, Daniel Amen. He made me find that 6-year-old version of myself. He said, think of a place you like. I thought of a stream that I used to fish at by myself, and it was my little sanctuary. I'd come home from school when there was chaos going on in my house. I'd grab my fishing pole. I'd walk. You grew up in Ohio. You know how quick you go to any stream, any pond's got fish. I'd walk down. Exactly. I'd go down and hide, and I'd fish all by myself, and it was my peaceful moment. So now I'm sitting in that stream with my 6-year-old. I remember a jean jacket I had when I was probably 8, but I pictured this jean jacket I had on. And I had a conversation with that 8-year-old, 6-year-old version of myself. I said, hey, you got to stop worrying. We're good. All the things, I got goosebumps talking about it. I said, all the things you were worried about, all the things you were afraid of, none of them happened. Your life turned out amazing. You're in a great relationship. You have 2 incredible kids. You're impacting the world. You got to let it go because I promise you you're safe. And then Dr. Amen's taken me through this. And I literally hugged my 8-year-old. He says, hug him and tell him he's okay. And he's like, say it out loud. And I'm saying it, and I'm not crying. I'm like sobbing, like the hardest cry of my entire life. I'm hugging this younger version of myself and saying, we got this. We're okay. You're not going to die. You don't have to be afraid. And it really got to my heart, and it was part of the healing process. And I think it's the same thing with everything. Like, I have to go back and say, the 17-year-old kid, when all my friends went off to college and I knew I wasn't, and I was going to take my dad's business, and my dad's business went out, and I'm like stuck with nothing, and I'm living off credit cards. I still feel that some days, and that's why I hustle like I'm broke. Yeah. Like, you ever watch me? You know how I work.
You work your ass off, man.
And everybody's like, they must wonder, like, does he need to? It's like, no, I want to, right? But I think I need to spend time, now that you said it, I need to spend time and go back to that 17-year-old kid and say, hey, man, you're just fine, right? And you go through that process. I got to hug him out,
right? Yeah.
So I think that's the process. I mean, that was a process that worked for me.
Yeah, and then hug the 46-year-old version of yourself going through the divorce.
Yeah, exactly.
And hug him out and say, it's going to be fine. You're going to look what you're going to create after you separate and get through the divorce.
I've said this to you before, maybe even on the last podcast we did, but there is zero doubt in my mind that something I wish I learned earlier, and again, this is something I put in a letter to my kid, to Luca or to any of my children, is our next level always lives on that thing that we're afraid of the most. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think we're allowed to get to our next level until we face it. I mean, look at, you just did an amazing trip. Fearful stuff that was little, but look at the breakthroughs you had in that little piece of just cold water.
Huge.
I look at so many things that I avoided for years. I mean, even in my last relationship, I woke up for 7 years straight every morning, and the first thing I'd think about is like, when am I going to end this?
Oh my God, I know that feeling.
And
it's horrible.
It's a horrible feeling, but then that, even though I still had massive success in my life, massive gains, ran my company, that was still like a weight on my shoulders. Why do you think I had such a good year last year? If you had to look at it from the outside, you know me for about 6 years now. What do you think one of the reasons I had a great year?
I think you were. Relationship. You were in the right relationship, and you were excited about the relationship, and you were in integrity with yourself in the relationship. And so there's no weight. You're in complete freedom because you have everything you need with that.
I was hoping you said that, because I'm just in complete alignment. Yeah. Like, there was a part of me that was a fraud. Even though the world didn't know, I knew it. Right? So all of a sudden, when you're in complete alignment, like the weight, you didn't realize you were carrying around 200 pounds on your back, right? You wake up and you think about gratitude and where you can go and your compelling future. So I think it just all ties together. And the other thing too, I know Bill Gates says it and Tony Robbins says it, a lot of people say it, it's been around for a long time, but we all overestimate what we can do in a year and underestimate what we can do in 5 or 10. Mm-hmm. And the next 5 years is going to go by like that, no matter what, right? My last 5 years like that. So no matter where you are, you might say, well, Dean, now you're 51, you went through all that stuff, you got money, but it all has to start at one moment. Like this podcast, I enjoy being with you so much, man. And I'm trying to get a lot out in a short period of time. But if you just take what serves you and throw the rest away, if you took anything from this podcast today, just know that we have to start someplace. And if you're in a rough spot, just decide to start today. Like, there's always a line in the sand where you could say enough is enough. Like, Say yes to something you've been wanting to say yes to for a long time. Say no to something you've been dragging your feet on, because I know with me, my life was stuck for 7 years. Stuck. My income was stuck. Who I was as a parent, who I was as an example, who I was as a role model. I mean, what kind of role model would I have been if I stayed in that old relationship? I'm not advocating divorce, but for me, it wasn't the right relationship. I was living in a separate room. I was